Hey, Nerd Herd, Dynasty Nerds back again. We're kicking off the 2023 rookie running back class with a name you might have heard of, Bijan Robinson, who will be my Dynasty running back one overall.
Wow, and we're going to talk about somebody whose pass pro gets described as a paper bag blowing in the wind.
And there's a player that finds a hole, hits it, and hits it hard.
And hits it hard.
Wow, so much to cover, so much information. Let's get into it.
Ready, set, hut. Welcome to the Dynasty Nerds Fantasy Football Podcast, where we discuss Dynasty strategy, rankings, and all things NFL. So get ready to geek out on fantasy football with your host, Rich Dotson.
And welcome to the Dynasty Nerds Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Rich Dotson, here with my fellow nerds, Matt O'Hara.
Hey.
And Garrett Price.
Oh, these are my favorite episodes of the entire year.
Yeah, they're fun. And Jared Wackerly producing.
So excited.
Yeah, these are fun. We're talking Dynasty Fantasy Football Rookie Running Backs 2023. This is part 1 of 4. So we have 4 shows to do to break down these running backs, and there's a lot of them. Probably one of the deepest positions outside of tight end of this class. So it's going to be exciting. We got a lot to break down and talk about with these guys. And kind of like when we talked about quarterbacks, there's so many of these running backs. Draft capital, landing spot, it is just as important for running backs as it is with quarterbacks. You want them to get a good spot. You want to have an opportunity and be in the right system.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the times it is opportunity that catapults a guy that's kind of above average in a lot of areas into somebody that can be fantasy relevant. So it does have a huge effect on running back value.
Yeah, you don't want people getting drafted behind Bijan Robinson,
right? Or
Saquon Barkley,
Breece Hall, Saquon Barkley. Yeah, you don't want those guys. So we're going to here talk about these guys. And, of course, we have the Nerd Herd Show. We're going to break down another half. If you're unfamiliar, if you're new to the show, there's so many rookies. We do our free show, and then we do the Nerd Herd Show. The Nerd Herd is just our subscriber-based show. And, you know, not only when you join the Nerd Herd, you get the bonus podcast to get all our breakdowns on these rookies. You get our intensive nerd score that Jared and Garrett do, that they've actually done better than NFL draft-wise on breaking down these rookies. It's just based on tape. You get access to all of our tools as well. And, of course, the biggest thing right now is you get access outside the Dynasty GM and our tools is the Dynasty Film Room. And that's where we watch all our tape, us and all the other people out there that use the tape film room to watch in there. And if you're like, hey, how do I join the Nerd Herd? Well, right now we got one of the best deals in all of fantasy football.
In all of the world.
If you want to join the Nerd Herd and get a free 1-year subscription, so you can watch all the tape on this year's class and have enough time to watch all the tape on next year's class, you can get all of that with the Dynasty GM, the tools, the film room, the extra podcast for $10. Now, how do you do that?
Say what?
All you got to do is sign up for UNDERDOG and use the promo code NERDS. Not only will they match your deposit up to $100, but you're going to get a free year-long subscription to the Nerd Herd, which is worth
such a no-brainer.
Technically $70 is what it's technically worth.
It is.
But to be $1 billion, and you're like, well, Rich, UNDERDOG, what is that if you don't know what UNDERDOG is? It's a best ball app, right? Underdog Fantasy. And they have multiple sports. Obviously, I just focus on football. I've been using it literally since day one. I used to use it when it's called Draft. Then it became Underdog. And what I love about it is, like, we all love the draft, right? It's like, why are we addicted to startups? Because we love the draft. And what Underdog does is allow you to go out there and draft a team, not a dynasty team, just a redraft team. And once you draft that team, that's it. You never have to touch it again.
Set it. Forget it.
Yeah, that's it. And
Not
if you
even,
win,
not even
you
set
win some
it.
cash.
Just forget it.
Just forget it.
It
Draft
automatically
it and
sets
forget
your best lineup. And what we're also doing when you sign up using the promo code NERDS is we're putting you in leagues with myself, Garrett, Jared, and Matt. Like, I'm in a draft right now with listeners. I think we're almost done in round 18. Jared, who gets a draft with one of these guys this week?
Garrett, you guys both ran one last week. Actually, I ran with Garrett too.
Yeah,
And how quickly did both yours fill? I mean,
like you said, I'm gonna open this up and it filled literally. You're like,
Less than a
hey,
minute?
I need that. I need to see if people are gonna sign up. I'm like, we're already drafting, bro.
yeah, I know. And I got a bunch of emails from people saying they got an error when they click the link. If you get an error, that just means the league is full.
Okay.
FYI.
Okay.
So
we
you
need to
do
get
that?
Matt on one though.
Yeah,
no,
Matt's going this week then, and
We'll launch it. We'll probably do a couple more this week.
So, and Underdog has a ton of different games outside of just that. You know, they have their Best Ball Mania. Our buddy Pat Coran won $2 million. We literally know somebody that won it, that won $2 million doing this. If you look at his team, it was like, I could have drafted that team.
telling me there's a chance.
Yeah,
There's
we're
a
giving
chance.
T-shirts away to Nerd Herd subscribers too.
And if
That's
you're,
big.
if you're already in the Nerd Herd, we will send you the most comfortable T-shirt in the world as supporting us. So for $10, you get a brand new Nerd shirt too, no cost to you. So check it out. There's so much going on at Underdog. I encourage everybody, just download the app, check it out, and you'll love it. I promise you that. You'll actually love it. I use it nonstop. Literally, once Underdog opens, I start drafting teams, and then when that draft ends, I start another draft. I was talking to my good buddy Chase Vernon, Underdog, other day, who's with Trophy Smack. He's like, dude, I have to do like 2 at a time because I don't want one to end. And I'm like, I like that style, Chase. I'm about to get in on that too. So I usually end up with like probably about 35 leagues that I'm in. But again, you could do that because it's just best ball.
Yeah,
so like,
you don't have to set lineups, man.
no, you just check it throughout the year, see how you're doing. Like, oh, I'm in first, second, third. Oh, I just won $8.
Yeah.
No. So 1 year I did really good. Last year I did okay. 1 year, the year before that I did really good.
Crushed it.
Yeah, I made a lot of money.
Real quick, when you guys enter your promo codes, give us at least 24 hours. You'll get your when you enter to get your promo code, you'll get it within 24 hours.
Oh yeah,
I've
people
had a
always
lot
ask,
of emails asking when they're going to get it.
yeah, just sign up for Underdog. Where's my promo code?
Yeah, it'll come. It's usually shorter than that, but
At least 24 hours.
yeah, I get a report from Underdog, and then I have to manually send those out. So
All right, let's talk rookie running back, shall we?
Let's do it, man. All right, first up today is Bijan Robinson. We're starting right at the top.
Who's that?
I don't know. Some running back
Are
from
you
Texas.
excited?
He's pretty good. 5'11", 215 pounds. He ran a 4.46. He had a 1.52 10-yard split, so pretty good there as well. Broad jump of 124 inches, vertical of 37 inches. Last year he had 258 carries, 1,580 yards, 18 touchdowns, 19 receptions, 314 yards, and an additional 2 touchdowns.
Yeah,
So
Doak
very-
Award winner,
very
best
impressive.
running back in
Yep.
all college football, and that's a fact. Not only was the
Fact.
not only was he a Doak
Canadian.
Award winner and somebody who was the best running back in college last year, he's one of the best running back prospects I've ever scouted.
Yep.
This is a guy
Oh, boy.
that will be the
Please.
dynasty running back. That was intentional.
Go on.
Will be my dynasty running back 1 overall the day he is drafted, and I can put him on any dynasty roster that I have. And I was thinking about him. I was like, because it's not fair to compare Bijan to running backs in this class because he's so above and beyond these running backs in this class.
Correct.
So I tried to think of other running backs I had as the running back 1 overall the day they got drafted by the NFL since I've been doing the podcast, which is 9 years now. And there's only 2 other running backs that I had fit that mold. It was Saquon Barkley and it was Ezekiel Elliott.
Right.
Those are the only other 2 running backs that I have come in here. And if you ask why Bijan is so good, like if you're like, hey man, I've heard his name over and over and over again, and I haven't dumped in his film room yet, or I just listen to you guys. That's how I get my rookie content, right? That's what we're here for. We'd help break these guys down, give you an opinion, and then we encourage you to watch the film afterwards.
Right.
But we'll carry you all the way if we need to. That's what we do. We're like G.I. Joe. Get my back. He's a true 3-down back, right? You don't have a lot of those guys in the NFL these days. That's what he is. He's a true 3-down back. Pete Pro Football Focus credited him with 104 missed tackles.
That's a terrible linebacker.
That's the most they've ever given since they've been graded. And 22.
It's a good running back. Terrible linebacker.
Terrible linebacker. You don't want to miss that many
and
tackles.
he's the only running back to ever go over 100 for them. His contact balance, elite. His jump cut, fantastic. His vision, grade A. His power, he consistently finishes runs. This is somebody who averaged 3.3 yards per carry when he was hit behind the line of scrimmage last year. His burst, his speed, he could change direction on a dime. And when you say that, you got to remember, like Matt said, he's 215 pounds.
Right.
He could change direction on a dime.
Which was smaller than I expected, actually. I actually expected him to come even
Like
more.
220 or so?
I was wondering if maybe that was for the 40, that he slimmed down a little bit for the 40. But I wouldn't be surprised to see him back up in the 220s during the season.
Yeah, I agree.
His feet are so quick. He displays such good bursts. He gets in and out of his cuts so well. He runs low to the ground, which you absolutely love for a back of his size. And then so that's just his running ability, right? Like you love all of that. Then you look at what he does in a passing game. His hands are fantastic. He could run really good routes. He's good run after the catch. He's averaging 13.4 yards after the catch. That's
pretty good.
Yards per catch. I'm sorry.
Yards per catch.
Yards per catch. That's still pretty good.
He can block. He only allowed a set. didn't allow a single sack all year when he blocked for the quarterback and only allowed 4 pressures. There's nothing that he doesn't do. If you take all the attributes of the running backs in the NFL today and what they do well, that's Bijan Robinson. He's that good. He's the guy in the running back when you see when you do a dynasty startup and you see that running back at number 1, which is, we had that for a while. Now it's flipped. It's Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase. Bijan could take that. He could take that mantle, right? When we saw Jonathan Taylor do it a couple of years ago, Bijan could be the next. He's that good. I would take him probably 3rd overall in a startup, right behind Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson. And if there's any running back I would take that high, it would be like a player like Bijan. And, when you say, Rich, you build around young receivers, any chance you have an opportunity to get a special running back, an outlier, which is what Bijan Robinson is. Remember, he's an outlier.
Totally.
He's somebody who's going to break that 1-year contract mold that we always talk about, that hashtag 2-3 year window. He's a hashtag 5 to 8 year window. He's that kind of guy because 8 years is a little pushing it, but he's also only 21 years old. So he's extremely young. So when he signs his next contract, he'll be 25, 26 years old, right around where Saquon is, ready to go for a couple more years. And then at that point, the investment you're going to get in a guy like Bijan Robinson 5 years down the road when you're ready to sell, which again is a lifetime in Dynasty Fantasy Football, lifetime of running back 1 numbers.
Oh my gosh.
You will be able to recoup multiple first-round picks that you just took him with your first. He's a franchise cornerstone. He's a championship caliber player. And by that, I mean, he's the kind of player that will literally propel you into the playoffs by putting the right pieces around him. He's a difference maker. That is Bijan, right? And cons, you guys talk about his cons. We all have the same con. For me, my cons are so minuscule and so petty.
Sure.
I don't even care.
So I don't even care. So I mean,
Bijan.
I share a lot of the same sentiments. I'm not going to go through all the same crap, all his glory and greatness that you just went over. but I do have at least a few concerns. And the biggest one that I see, I want him to hit the hole and kind of get north and south a little bit quicker. He does have a tendency to, I think, make something happen on every single play, no matter what. And sometimes it leads to him kind of dancing around a little bit too much in the backfield. There's that, and there is almost, I think he has got great contact balance in like the traditional sense where if there's contact, he'll hit that and he'll roll off it and kind of keep going. And I feel good about that aspect of it. But when sometimes in just like change of direction type of things, he seems to almost trip over his feet a little bit too much. Like his feet are going like you mentioned it pre-show. His feet are going too fast for him almost. And I don't know what the disconnect is there. If he's just sees a hole and he's so anxious that he wants to get going. Yeah. And maybe he just needs to have a little bit more patience in his running, maybe to kind of slow himself down to see it and then trust that he's going to get there without having to hurry. You know what I mean? Because he's fast. He's so fast. It's almost
like like the Roadrunner at times where the feet are just going so fast.
Right. So those are like the things that I see where I have a little bit of pause, and it's only a little bit of pause. It's not. I don't want it to be blown out of proportion. Like I don't like they do because, like I said, I've got so many of the same things that Rich already said on the plus side. I just do want to mention these other things.
Yeah, no, and we're 3 for 3. I mean, you would be hard pressed to find even the most hot take person to not have Bijan Robinson, the number 1 running back in this class. I think almost like universally. I legitimately don't know that I've heard anyone not have him number 1. So we're not like breaking any like news to most of you listening. You've probably already assumed he's going to be the top guy. The only other thing I did have some concerns. It sounds like he, numbers wise, it worked out for him in the pass pro game, but I have him as average, like an average NFL player. There was some things that he missed at times, and he got a little sloppy with his mechanics.
He looked aloof at times. Yeah. That's what I wrote, and that's not what you want to see out of running back, doing pass pro. You want to see him in there and kind of being aggressive and really getting where he's supposed to be in front of those defenders. And I kind of thought he was like, whatever.
He's a little sloppy, but.
At times, it's not like
not consistently.
Yeah, it's not
I read
consistently.
those stats, and you're like, "Oh, that's pretty good, though."
That did. I mean, the stats sound good, but there were some clips of that. But I mean, just to show you this, it is very like in my nerd score model. It is, which is all based on tape. It is very hard to get 9s or better. Like it's very hard to get 9s or better. He has a 9 or better on tackle breaking, contact balance, physicality and power, and receiving. So 4 categories. he has a 9 or better. So he's just a rare specimen. The highest individual, now this isn't combined nerd score, my individual nerd score, the highest grade I had given to a running back up until this point, which would be the 3 previous classes, was a 78.32.
To who?
J.K. Dobbins was the highest.
Yeah.
So in the top 5, we have Dobbins, Swift, Brees, Javonte, and now Bijan. Bijan's at an 82. So
almost 10 points higher.
4 points higher.
4 points. That's solid math. But
I thought I said 73 for some reason.
Yeah, no, 78. So 78 to 82. And all the other guys are 78, then 77, then 76. So all those guys are in like that 77, 78 range. He's at an 82 point something. So
easy breezy.
Yeah. And it's even a high, 82.48. So he's clearly far and away from the past 4 classes, in my opinion, the best running back.
So it's consensus.
It is consensus, but you had mentioned something that like comparing him to other, guys that came in the league as top running backs right from day one. How do you guys see him compare to guys like Saquon and guys like Ezekiel Elliott?
I'll let you guys take that because I wasn't like scouting seriously at that point.
I feel like Saquon I had a little bit higher in the scouting process. And then, I don't know, man, I feel like I had Zeke higher too, to be honest with you, like coming out wise, but like literally splitting hairs.
That's because you're a Ohio State fan, man.
Yeah, that's why. Literally, I think that's when I said, because that was a long time ago.
It was a long time ago.
I remember when I had Zeke I was like, dude, Zeke's my number 1 running back in Dynasty coming out. And literally, I got shit for it. Like, people were like, oh, yeah, it's because you're Ohio State homer. I'm like, no, I don't care about that. Like, I'll have some Browns homerism like that when they're actually on the Browns, but that's more of like just my own personal preference. I would draft them over. I wouldn't rank them over somebody.
Right.
But like, so no, Zeke's the best running back in the NFL. And then what do you do? Gotta be running back 1.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's close, literally splitting here. Like, him and like he reminds me of a little bit of Zeke a little bit more.
I agree. No, so for me, the difference is Zeke didn't dance as much as he does. Yeah. I think from a physical standpoint and from a lot of the running like all that kind of stuff, I think they're very similar and on a very similar plane. Mm-hmm. I just where Zeke was when he came into the NFL, he was a much more polished, I think, pass blocker in pass pro. He was that was like he took pride in that. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so there was no reason to ever take that guy off the field. He never was a guy that was going to miss assignments or kind of just half-ass it in pass pro. And he hit the hole and just went. Like he was never a guy that really danced. So a couple of the little concerns that I have are just enough to get, for me, Zeke above him.
And Saquon danced a little bit.
Saquon danced a little bit too. I just think Saquon might be a little bit more physically gifted.
Yeah, he's got the quads for
than a guy like Bijan. It's close, but I give the slight edge to Saquon there.
Yeah,
and that's why I would
probably have that way too.
I would have both those guys ahead of him, but it's like you said, you're literally splitting hairs. But if I had to order them, that he would be the third.
Would there be anyone else even in that tier?
I'm telling you, man. Like,
not for me.
Not for me. I mean, we all had Brees 1 last year, but I said in this podcast, I was like, Brees is arguably one of the best running backs I've ever scouted. Like he was.
So he'd probably be 4 for you.
Brees is a smooth criminal.
Yeah, I probably would have Brees as the 4th best running. I mean, you know what? I mean, Dalvin Cook was a really good prospect coming out. I mean, we had Dalvin Cook number 1.
We had Dalvin Cook number 1, but that was the same year Leonard Fournette came out.
Other people
and Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah, but other people did not have Dalvin Cook number 1. We had Dalvin Cook number 1.
Correct.
Dalvin Cook was a really good prospect. Brees Hall, I probably have Brees Hall 4th. But yeah, I mean, but still, I mean, he's in a different even tier than Brees. Not super high, but higher than even Brees. So, yeah, special running back. Congrats to everybody that has the 1-1. If you're going to go out and trade for the 1-1, you're going to slightly overpay, but you're going to get a really good proven asset. The difference between, I think the big difference between, Zeke and Saquon was after Saquon's big rookie years, he tore his ACL. Which is a huge setback. It's usually about a year and a half you lose, and every year for a running back counts. So that's a huge gap. And with Zeke, I mean, Zeke literally he was hot out the gates, dominant, and then he just slowly diminished like over the years. Yeah, and he didn't hold that like. I mean, he's a running back 1 every year, which is again. I mean, Zeke was literally an A+ dynasty draft,
but he was kind of a like superior version of the 2 to 3 year window. Like he had 3 incredible seasons. Then you started to see that trickle.
He started to go down a little bit, but he was still a running back one. But
sure.
the difference was
he's still like an outlier as far as being a running back one year after year after year,
which is huge.
4 or 5 years. Was it 5 years for him in a row?
Something like
more
that.
than that, I think.
Yeah, 5 or 6 or
So
something.
more, I mean, I think it was longer than that. I mean, he was
it?
I think up until last year, he was running back one every single year.
I think so.
So longer than that. I mean, but when it comes to overall fantasy prospects, then you're talking like Jamal Charles, LaDainian Tomlinson, LaShawn McCoy, guys like that. Can Bijan supplant that? Because Saquon's impossible to plant those guys because he won't have enough years to do that. Like LaShawn McCoy had like 9 years. Alvin Kamara's in that class, honestly, too, when it comes to fantasy football production. So
Plant him.
yeah, it's a good prospect.
I don't really have anything to add as far as like Bijan as a prospect goes, but I think it's important right now to bring up, because we're all expecting Bijan to go in the first round, right?
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
How important it is to target first-round running backs and how high their hit rate is. So these statistics are from Analytics of Dynasty. Every year, Jordan McNamara puts out a new book. So check that out if you haven't. But 82% of running backs drafted in the first round produce a top 24 finish. And if they don't hit in the first year, they have a higher chance to hit in the next year than second-round running backs coming out that next year. Second-round running backs have a 58% chance to produce a top 24 hit. So it just goes to show you like how important and how high the likelihood is that a first-round running back is going to hit.
Going to hit.
16%.
One or two, first or second year, right?
Rashad Penny, Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Right.
Yep.
Thanks for coming.
45% hit for 2 top 12 finishes. So
Yeah,
they're insulated too. They're going to carry value for.
And that's why I get so excited, even like talking about a guy like Clyde Edwards-Helaire if he gets drafted to the Chiefs. It's why I was so excited. You know, you get the first round. That first round pedigree is huge. It's like a top 10 pedigree for a quarterback. And then the fact that he was a pass catcher running back, like that's massive, right? You know, like when Adrian Peterson comes into the league, you're extremely excited. He's not dominant in the pass catching game. Once you get a running back to do both of those, hence why like those guys are always running back ones. You know, LaShawn McCoy, Alvin Kamara, right? Like really good pass catcher running backs, which propels that dominance forever. Christian McCaffrey the same way. Those are the guys that are like really hard to come by, and Bijan gives you all of that. So who are we on to next?
All right, moving on to our next running back prospect, Devon Achane, running back, Texas A&M, 5'8", 188 pounds
And a half.
Only 8.5-inch hands, Rich. Ran a 4.32 in the 40. He had a 1.51 10-yard split, which is really good. Tops that might be second or third in the class. And a 33-inch vertical. Last year he had 196 carries for 1,102 yards, 8 touchdowns, 36 receptions, 196 yards, and another 3 touchdowns.
Missed 2 games with a foot injury.
He sure did.
Yeah, Achane is somebody that Jared and I have been talking about for quite a while. I remember like after his freshman year, texting him and being like, hey, I kind of like this Achane kid. Like, I know he's not like your traditional back, but this guy's like got legitimate wheels. And now we found out like literally time-wise, we're talking Olympic level speed in the 200.
Olympic level speed.
So we're not just saying track speed, we're saying Olympic level.
Do you know in high
speed.
school he had in the 200-meter outdoor the fastest in the nation at 20.46?
Did he?
Yeah, fastest in the nation as a junior in high school.
So, I mean, the kid is just a phenomenal athlete. And he was getting playing time right away as a freshman, which you love seeing that. You love seeing guys that get on the field, even with, and I get it, that Spiller has disappointed so far at the NFL level, but a guy that was drafted, early round 4, that he got on the field with him right away. There's a lot of things in his game that are better than you would expect for someone of his size. First of all, I think he actually has really good vision. You never know how like these smaller size scat back looking players are going to do between the tackles, but his vision was plus for me. Good patience as well. Very, very elusive. So it's not just the top speed, but he has the elusiveness to go with it. I didn't have the highest marks. I had him breaking tackles decently, but not necessarily the highest contact balance in the class. There's really not a lot of physicality and power there.
Right.
Enough to get by, but that's not at all a strong suit of his. Struggles a little bit in the pass pro, but I think excels enough They didn't throw the ball to him as much as I thought they would, but when he does it, looks natural, looks fine. I don't have any worries there. So Achane overall is a good prospect. I gave him a 74.08, which is a good score for me. That's in a similar range to guys that we've seen be on the cusp of the top 10 overall in the past 3 seasons. So very good player. Really like him.
You had Najee at like 74.
There we go. I was trying to think of a good comp of where I had him. So
yeah, it's ETN. You had 74.
Perfect. Yeah, right around the same spot as ETN.
Yeah, this is running back when you hear his size, 5'8.5", 108 pounds. Just look at those numbers. It's a deterrent for you. But this guy breaks the mold for me. I came away very impressed. And I know Matt said that he only had 8.5-inch hands, which could be worrisome. He only had 2 fumbles in 3 years.
I just wanted to put that in there.
He only had 2 fumbles in 3 years. And when you watch him play, again, his size, his biggest con is going to be his size, right? But when you
100%.
watch him play, he's not afraid to run between the tackles.
That's
Like
like
he's
his only
fearless in there. And even despite his size, he still averaged 4.5 yards per carry between the tackles. I saw a really good stat from my homie, Rich Rebar, who works for Warren Sharp and Sharp Analysis. Rich Rebar said when Achane was hit at or behind the line of scrimmage, he averaged 4.5 yards after contact per attempt and turned 24.7% of those carries into first downs or touchdowns. Both of those rates were amongst the highest of this entire draft class. So even when he was getting hit behind the line of scrimmage, he was still producing at a high level for his team. Everything about his game is something is very exciting. Garrett named all those. Ran pretty good routes. He actually played some slot sometimes as well. You saw him out there. I thought he tracked the ball well. Good with the ball in his hands, like you mentioned. I mentioned only 2 fumbles in 3 years. And he is small. I mean, it's a reason, that were like 66% of his runs were to the outside. And he actually averaged 6.2 yards per carry when he got to the outside.
And he's got plenty of speed to get out there. Plenty of speed.
And sometimes that was a detriment because sometimes he would look to get to the outside when there'd be a hole into the middle. And I could live with that and I'd be coached up. And another kind I would have for him, since he is a little bit smaller, it was harder for him. Like when he had to extend for the passes, he had a little bit more of a difficult time because he's smaller.
There's not as much there to extend with those 8.5-inch fingers.
But for me,
hands, fingers. That'd be long.
Those are long fingers, man.
I think size is important for a running back. So when I look at his size, like I'm immediately going, all right, here's a cut prospect. Even though I like his tape, it's not going to work.
So
he breaks the mold for me.
That's my main question. You know what I mean? I love all the stuff that he does. He's got crazy lateral agility.
Mm-hmm.
And he has, like you said, great vision. I think he follows his blocks well, but when things are not going well,
he recognizes and diagnoses
it, and he's got the agility and burst to go the other way and make something out of nothing. So I think there's a lot there to like. And even between the tackles, the question I have is at 188 pounds, what kind of role is he going to have in the NFL that lets him do what he was doing in college? Because I think if he lands a similar role in the NFL and a coach that trusts him,
could do well.
He'll do well, and he could be special in the NFL for fantasy purposes. If not, I'm just not sure. Like, are we stuck with a Kenneth Gainwell type of thing where he's going to tease you and he's going to look good at times, but they're always going to be having another running back there with him, kind of sharing time? That's what I'm worried about with Devon Achane. It's not talent at all. It's what kind of role is it?
I think they have a similar skill set, with the exception of Kenneth Gainwell had good speed. He has elite speed.
He absolutely
and
does.
I think that's the big differentiator.
That's a tier break too.
Yep.
Because you give him the outside. If you give him the outside, you threw a little screen to him, he has a chance to take it to the house. Like Garrett said, Olympic type speed. And people are going to knock him too. I mean, Jahmyr Gibbs is 5'9". He's 9 pounds heavier than him. You know what I mean? So it's like, we're talking a half-inch difference here between Devon Achane. So I'm really excited. So I currently have him right now as my running back 4. And I flip-flop, right? Like I had him as my running back 3 behind Gibbs. And then I already started diving into some Zach Charbonnet a little bit deeper. And I think Zach Charbonnet's upside is higher than Devon Achane's. So I would
safer too.
He's safer. So I'd put him ahead of Devon Achane. I'm really excited to see where he gets drafted and what kind of draft capital he gets invested in. I think he's a day 2 guy for sure. I want to see where he lands and where he could fit into what mold he could fit into, because that's going to, we were all surprised when James Cook went in the second round to the Buffalo Bills. Can Devon Achane fulfill that for us? But on a positive, when James Cook went in the second round, I was like, oh wow, that's a little surprising. If Devon Achane goes in the second round, I'm like, all right, now there's an argument here for him to be running back 3 overall, running 4. So I'm really excited to see where the draft kind of breaks some of these tier breaks for me, because I have a lot of guys that are in like kind of same mold for me. Outside of Bijan, then you got Gibbs. I mean, argue Gibbs is kind of. I think Gibbs and Charbonnet could kind of be in the same tier as well. And like
definitely possible.
And like Achane's like there, right? Like the door's open. He's been invited in. It just he hasn't walked through the door yet, and the draft can do that.
And to your point, Garrett, I went back and looked in Kenneth Gainwell's combine stuff. 5'11", so he was
a little bit lankier,
a little bit taller, and 195 pounds, so he had a little bit more meat to him. But 4.42, so that's a big difference. 4.32, 4.42. That's, I mean, as far as speed on the field, that's a huge difference.
And the 3 inches in running back's case lower is somewhat better because you have a better BMI, so he's more compact, a little bit better to take some of those hits and that kind of stuff. Unless
you get down into a certain range that we'll talk about.
Well, you do have that. You know who he kind of reminds me of? Like if let's say this player was a 75 out of 100 being the best running back ever. He's a 75 out of 100, Michael Carter. Then put Achane at like a 90. Similar attributes, just better. Better at all of it.
I agree. And I liked Michael Carter more than Kenneth Gainwell, so maybe Kenneth Gainwell isn't the best comp.
I liked Kenny G more.
You like Kenny Gainwell more. I liked Michael Carter
more too.
And I do think he's better than both of them. How about that? So
I think significantly.
Yeah. So I the only question I have is size. We'll see if he lands a better role than a guy like Kenny Gainwell or not. All right. So I
Jared,
guess. Go ahead.
I think Achane has a chance to be special if size doesn't end up being a factor. Because that's really the only con I can find in his game. And I watched the most tape on Achane out of all these running backs because my grade ended up being so high for him. So I kept trying to find why is his grade he's just so good to me. But physicality weighs in heavily in our grading system, and I graded him a 4 in physicality. And he still ended up being, he's a 76 for me right now, which is
a 4 in physicality. See, I would.
Yeah.
I don't do the score,
so for our grading scale, that's like average college running back level.
Okay.
That's what a 4 is.
He doesn't have a move the pile type of power. He just doesn't have the girth.
I think he takes contact well. He's actually more he's able to absorb contact. I thought his contact balance was a little better than what Garrett stated earlier. And
I thought it was pretty good too. He handles in between the tackles for his size extremely well. He gets lost in there because of his size, but his vision inside that in between the tackles and his contact balance, and like I said, his physicality in my eyes, maybe I just worded it differently than you guys. I would call power and physicality 2 different things. So I think he actually is a pretty physical back. I enjoyed watching him between the tackles because, and the reason I enjoyed it so much was because of his size. That's where I was looking for the biggest failure. Because Jared said, I liked him so much watching his tape. I was like, okay, let me bang him here because of his size in between the tackles. And he consistently surprised me. And he consistently found ways to break out of that. He disappeared and then he comes through, and it wouldn't be for big gains, but it'd be positive gains.
Right.
And it's not just that he can make people miss, juking him out. I thought he had a really good stiff arm.
He does.
Too.
That's absolutely
one of the better
true.
ones I've seen in this class. So there's a lot of nuance in his game.
Now he's back to running back 3 for me.
It's he's RB3 for me.
He's
right
RB3
now.
for him
He's
as well.
Closer to Gibbs than Gibbs is to Bijan. I would almost put them in the same tier.
You're going to hear Gibbs a lot as the consistent running back 2. He's current my running back 2. But Achane and Charbonnet are not behind him far whatsoever. They're there. I
agree with that.
I feel like there's no need to trade up number 2 when you could easily get one of these guys after them. And Jackson Smith and Jigbud's probably going to go ahead of these guys. And then the receivers, Quentin Johnson's a nice prospect as well. But then you're talking running back here. So
I've done a very scratch the surface on Charbonnet, so I'm not going to comment where he's at, but I do like where Devon Achane is.
Oh, and speaking of that too, like next week we're going to break down the free agency class. We're actually going to record on a Saturday. The Saturday recording, because I'm going to be in spring break. The kids at Dominican Republic, and then a week after that we're going to come back and pick up back on running backs. Just give everybody heads up. They're looking for that next step. Were they on Zach Charbonnet? We're going to wait.
Show will still come out Tuesday-ish, Wednesday.
Yeah.
I'll be at a bachelor party this weekend.
So
Ooh, look at you.
We're all partying. Next prospect, please.
All right, the next one on the list is Kenny McIntosh, running back, Georgia, 6'2", 204. He had 9 in chance. I know that we're not really doing that, but 4.62 in the 40. 1.54 though in the 10-yard split, which is not that far behind some of the other guys that ran
0.2 behind Bijan.
Right. That 40 time kind of took me aback a little bit.
Because he looks faster than that on tape.
Yeah.
And that's why I did want to mention a lot of these 10-yard splits, because guys like this that didn't run a great 40 but still look fast on tape, so it kind of shows in that 10-yard split. So that's why I kind of wanted to add that in. 149 rushing attempts, 829 yards rushing, 10 touchdowns, 43 receptions, 505 yards, and an additional 2 touchdowns.
It sucks that these guys don't run 3 cones anymore. And barely any of these running backs ran the 3 cone.
I know.
Only a couple.
It's one of my biggest barometers. I love seeing the 3 cones. I love seeing the 20-yard shuttles.
And they're just shifty hips.
And they're just not doing it. The one guy that did do it, I loved his time, and I also like him as prospect. We won't talk about him until later on, I think in the Nerd Herd show, but he did have one.
He did have one. I got excited when I got to put it in there. And it was a good time.
It was a very good time.
So Kenny McIntosh out of Georgia, like Matt said, this was a prospect that I actually went into slightly with a negative concept, because I saw Jared Wackerly put a tweet out before I jumped into his film.
This guy.
Saying this is a guy that people are excited about, but I just don't see it. And I was like, great. Here's a guy. Because sometimes you go into tape and you have preconceived notions like, this guy's going to suck. Or this guy's going to be really good. Like you go and watch Bijan, you're like, this is going to be juicy. And I actually came away pleasantly surprised with Kenny McIntosh. This is a guy who catches the ball well. I mean, it's probably his best attribute, right? Him catching the football.
Definitely.
I gave him a 9.
A lot of experience in the passing game. He ran 230 passing routes in college, 42 targets, 0 drops. He lined up in the slot and the outside as well. Looked good in pass protection. His contact balance is okay, not bad. I thought his vision was okay, I guess. I mean, there's times I saw him run into his blockers a couple times. That Trent Richardson, that look when you run in the back of your blockers, and you're like, dude, what are you doing? Like, what are you looking at? And I thought there was some stuff that was there for him that he just missed. He dances a little bit too behind the line of scrimmage sometimes as well. Once he gets the ball in his hands, he's not an overly elusive runner. And that's why when I saw his 40 time at 4.62, I'm like, he gets the ball, he makes a one cut, and he goes, and he's pretty good at that. Definitely when you throw him to football, like I really like him in a passing game, which in today's NFL, and when we're looking at Dynasty fantasy running backs, definitely when most teams have 2 running back systems, almost all of them, when you have a 2-back system, I want the running back on that team that's going to catch the footballs. This is where Kenny McIntosh comes in and what he offers the upside. If he is that running back on an NFL team, he offers running back 2 upside for your Dynasty fantasy football team. Wherever he goes, there's a very high likely chance that's going to be a very strong part of his game. So for that fact alone, out of this group that we're talking about, like between the Nerd Herd running backs and this running back, he's right around like the 4th best running back that I watched this past week.
I agree that he's got some talent. I love the fact that you kind of mentioned the one cut and go, because I do think that's kind of his best attribute. If he could get into his own blocking scheme where he's also catching passes and he's getting in one of these wide zones where you're kind of stringing it out, you find a crease, you put your foot in the ground and go, I think that's something he can excel at, because I think he's got really good burst and like short area quickness, and change of direction is a good thing for him. I do think if he dances a little bit too much, he doesn't kind of have the juice for that kind of stuff. And obviously the long speed, he's got enough speed to be an NFL back. 4.62 is nothing great, but we've seen plenty of backs that have had similar scores to that be just fine in the NFL. I mean, Kareem Hunt and stuff like that. Those are guys that are right around those kind of times coming out of the NFL. But I do think that kind of scheme would benefit him greatly, and that's like if you ended up into Miami, I know like we say that about everybody, right? Like, but if he ended up in that kind of system where he was in a zone scheme, I think that'd be great for him.
Kind of got the wind sucked out today when they re-signed Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson.
Yeah, no,
I saw Mostert. I didn't see Wilson.
Yeah,
Wilson
they're always looking for backs in those kind of systems.
Over there or something?
Yeah, David Montgomery, the Lions.
Woof.
What kind of deal?
Well, we'll talk about that this weekend.
Yeah, I just like has like
We saw the face.
Yeah.
We saw the face you made.
Well, it's better than Bijan to the Lions.
Sure.
yeah. I don't see a deal yet posted, but
All right. I still like DeAndre Swift better.
So for me, with Kenny McIntosh, I'll push back slightly on the vision. I actually liked his vision. Here's why. He's a tough eval for it because Georgia's blocking is awesome. Like really, really good offensive line. One of the best offensive lines in college football. So I think some of that time he was literally just, I'm trusting my offensive line to do what it's supposed to do. So I'm going to give him a little bit of a break on that. And on top of it, I think his second level vision is very good. When he gets in the open field, he does a great job of diagnosing what's going on, the leverage of the different players, the linebackers, the secondary. I think he gets down the field and he doesn't have great speed.
No.
But he makes the most of the speed he has.
Still breaks big runs, though.
He breaks a lot of big runs, and that's because of his vision downfield. So I actually overall was very impressed with that. I thought he broke a decent amount of tackles. Doesn't have great game speed. But to your point, Matt, I gave him a much better burst / acceleration than I did speed score because I don't think his speed is good, but I think he's got really solid burst. I have gone to the point, and we talk about it almost every year, and I'll emphasize it again. I am much more so of a pass-fail guy in the receiving game. Obviously, this is major pass for him. He's awesome. Yeah. The one slight differentiation I'll make with him versus other guys in this, and he might be the only one in the class. There's one other guy that might fall into this category too. But he and Jared and I were actually talking about this on the way up. His build is actually slightly more of a receiver build than it is a running back.
6'2", 204. Yeah,
he's like long.
He's long.
He's long.
Slight.
So with all of that, it would not surprise me if he is split out more, like you were mentioning, Rich. Like if he is utilized more often, kind of the reverse Deebo Samuel, the guy that is a running back by nature, but plays a decent amount of receiver because that is absolutely in his game. So if there is a team that's going to utilize him that way, we're talking about a major plus, but he still has a big enough body that he could be a first and second down guy. So even though I'm not projecting him as a 3-down back, if there was a dark horse to do it, it would be Kenny McIntosh.
Yeah, I'll give you an example of somewhere that would excite me about him still, which would kind of like shock some people that would, like from a fantasy football point, if he got drafted by my team, the Cleveland Browns. That would excite me for him because the Browns are a team that run their offense on third down. Nick Chubb is not on there. They want to pass catch a running back, and he has opportunity to produce at running back one numbers, and they don't have a really good receiving core, so they could slide him into the slot as well. Kenny McIntosh, to me, is somebody that is a really good sneaky grab. You're probably going to get in the second round that can offer year in, year out fantasy football production. Again, you're not probably looking at always running back one production. Could he get there potentially? Of course. But a guy who finishes at like consistently like running back 16, 15, 18, right around there. Somebody you can start in a really high-end flex player, to say the least. So I think Kenny McIntosh offers a ton of upside here.
And with that being said, I graded him at a 72.15. So where I've kind of noticed my numbers are, if you're above a 72, you have a really good shot at making a difference. The guys that I've seen that I tend to grade below a 72 usually don't hit. There's exceptions, but those ones usually aren't hitting or making much of an impact on their team. So for him to get above that 72 threshold for me was a good sign.
Where'd a guy like did you grade a guy like James Robinson when he came out?
James wasn't one of the ones I graded, unfortunately. I did cut up a game or two of them, so I was familiar.
Okay.
But with him like being undrafted and not getting a ton of buzz, I didn't end up grading him.
I know you said like if he was like he popped in my head as a guy that maybe would have popped a little bit and was probably below that threshold. That's why I asked.
Yeah. So the best example of somebody that popped that did not get above the threshold was Ramondre Stevenson.
Okay.
He was one of the few. In that actually got above that mark on mine. This wasn't the overall nerd score. This was just my personal one.
Sure.
So he's one of the better examples of one that actually like popped.
Gotcha.
All right. Before we move on,
let's talk about FFPC. FFPC, look, the selling point here is if you want to play Dynasty Fantasy Football, but you're frustrated because you play in leagues and you got the 101 and you got the 103, and you're convinced that you're going to walk away with Bijan Robinson and CJ Stroud, and then poof, the league's gone. It folds. Everybody, there's nothing more frustrating than building your team the right way for the future.
It's the worst.
And just having a league collapse. Absolute worst. You do not have to worry about that with FFPC. Not only that, there are orphan teams that you can get. You can even get them sometimes at a discount if it's a team that's not very good. Or if you're like, I'll pay a little extra do-re-mi to make sure I get a good squad, you can do that as well. You head over to myffpc.com. Go there, use promo code NERDS. When you do that, you get $25 off any entry for new members. So they start at $77. You put in $25, all of a sudden now it's just a $52 team. Pretty nice. So head over to ffpc.com, use promo code NERDS, and get $25 off today.
yeah, you can check out all their orphans that go on right there. They come up all the time. It's a really good opportunity to get into an established league and kind of like get high draft capital right out the rip with like Bijan and some of these prospects we're talking now. So love FFPC. Like I said, I mean, I can't stress enough the have that stability behind the league. That's literally whatever you pay for, that's the best thing you're going to pay for. Because we all know how to play Dynasty. Right. We all know how to play and we all enjoy the game. Your biggest fear is the league collapsing. This is where we're going to have the safety net.
If you're looking for leagues with strangers, like you have to play on FFPC.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Most people don't even have enough people to join leagues with. Like, whoa, right. Where do I find a league? Where do I find a league?
Especially
I see all the time
Dynasty.
in our Facebook group, right? Like our Facebook group has 18,000 people in there constantly like, hey, where can I find a new league?
Because something that's even worse than that is I've seen a lot of people where they're like, don't get in a league with this guy, and he's the one that runs the league and he just takes everybody's money. So you don't want that to happen.
So next prospect.
All right, next prospect on the list is Chase Brown, running back from Illinois, 5'9", 209, 10-inch hands. Whoa.
Big old hands.
Ran a 4.43 in the 40. He had a 1.53 split. He had a 127-inch broad jump and a 40-inch vertical. So this is an explosive athlete here. 25 bench reps as well. So this guy is really hitting a lot of things.
Killed the combine.
Yeah, a lot of things pretty hard here at the combine. 328 attempts last year, 1,643 yards rushing, 10 touchdowns. 27 receptions, 240 yards receiving, and an additional 3 touchdowns.
So good old Chase Brown here.
A Canadian.
You should have gotten to do this one first.
I wish we were.
Wait, is he actually from Canada?
He is from Canada.
Bold letters.
Canadian.
Yes. A Canadian. It says it very boldly here.
Oh, man. That's funny.
Our friends up north.
That is
Good
funny.
old friends up north, eh? All right. So Chase Brown, there are some things that he does well.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I think he has some decent vision.
Mm-hmm.
He's pretty quick.
Yeah.
Decent speed.
Yes. All those things. I like all that.
That's about it for me. That's about it that I had as far as positives.
Catch the balls.
He does. He catches the ball pretty well,
Ran
too.
some solid routes.
He did run some solid routes. I have a 7 there, so
if it gets
slightly
free,
above average.
He's got the speed.
My biggest issue, though, and look, he had really good production in the Big Ten.
Yes.
He did. He had good production on a team that wasn't very good, and you got to give him credit for that. But
All the production, pretty much.
basically, he went to the Senior Bowl. Things weren't great there for him.
Tell me about this because I haven't heard anything about this.
Yeah, so
Not a surprise.
he even interviewed with our own Dan Toomey.
Okay.
He sat down and talked to him, and he kind of talked about how big the event was and how like he was a little bit overwhelmed with all the things going on, and he had dropped a lot of balls while he was there. He had missed stuff. Like he just did not do very well.
Not putting his best foot forward there on the big stage. Okay.
No, and that's tough because that's a good level playing field for a guy like Chase Brown. And his brother was there. One of the very first plays, his brother like lit him up in the hole, and
it's
it
his
just
twin brother, right?
Twin brother that plays safety. Yeah. It wasn't great for him. So a guy that seems like a guy that tries hard, puts forth effort, but I just don't think that he has enough. And I don't think he has an area that he wins enough to be able to be a factor at the next level. I know he's a good sleeper. I know people have talked about him quite a bit. But right now, of the guys that we graded for this week, I have others on my chart for next week or 2 weeks or whatever. but he has the second lowest score of the guys for this week. So
I'm excited because I thought I was going to come here and be the biggest negative Nancy whatsoever because I watched Chase Brown's tape, and he's somebody I went into Malik excited. I've heard his name throughout the community. Like Chase Brown, Illinois. I've heard his name. People are excited about him. Oh, sleeper, Chase Brown. Boy, did I come away disappointed. He arguably might be the worst pass protection blocker for a guy his size I've ever seen, man. I mean, he got blown up all the time, like tossed around like a toddler was coming at me, and I just didn't want him near me. Like that's how easily he was tossed around. It's like he doesn't even want to try. He doesn't even want to try.
There were a couple of very egregious ones. I mean, you talked about the one he literally got ragdolled, just thrown aside, and then there was another one where he basically olayed an oncoming
he was
defender.
Superman.
Yeah. Or I guess the defender olayed him. He was coming as like a rushing bull, and the defender just went right by and strip sacked the quarterback. So
he dove like he was Superman.
Right.
It's after I saw that, I went back and wrote my scouting report. I was like, it's like he doesn't even want to try.
Yeah. So that was rough.
I mean, he has some fumbling issues, not a lot of burst or explosiveness. He's a one-speed runner. This is a guy who has zero power.
Zero.
I mean, when I say zero, I wouldn't trust this guy at the 5-yard line if there's 10 players on the defense. That's how bad. I watched him over and over again get carries at the 5-yard line, and he didn't move that pile a centimeter.
I just lowered it as we talked about it again, the number, because it's
that bad. I would again if I did the nerd score and I had to give a score for power, I would give him a 0.
You have to give him at least a 1.
What do I have?
No, I wouldn't. 0.
He said, no, I wouldn't.
He's got 0 power. Now, one time did I see him break anything off like that.
Yeah, I have him at 3.5.
Yeah, I have him at a 3.
Who's pushing him behind him?
He had one nice stiff arm. He had one nice stiff arm that I saw. It was pretty sweet, but that was it.
That's not even. That's just luck. Right angle, right time. Your elbow's locked in. That player took a bad angle. That's just luck. I went in to watch this tape like somewhat excited.
Yeah.
And out of all the players I watched, came away the most disappointed. He is off my board. He's off my board. I want nothing to do with him.
Okay, I think he has.
Sorry,
I'm going to
Chase.
fight you on the
Another
burst
personal.
and like one speed. I think he does have another gear, and he shows that in the open field. If he gets a crease, he can hit a big run.
He gets what's blocked for him. I'll give him that. He gets it and he can go.
Yeah,
but if
He's
it's
not
not
breaking
there,
any tackles.
To his defense, and I'm not like here to be like the number one guy on him.
why don't you just go
And
make
it
out with him,
sounds like
Matthew?
maybe I am. I don't love him, but I think
you're the number one guy here.
It still thinks I'm the number one. I still feel like I'm the number one guy here. He's in Illinois. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, he's not behind an awesome offensive line or anything like that. So, a guy like that is having a hard time getting anything going. When he finally gets a crease, he's basically their entire offense as well.
Wow.
Oh, gosh, here we go. We haven't seen these in a while.
It's been years.
They're dusty. They're really dusty. They're actually dusty.
I'm busting them out. Crystal balls. I'm busting them out.
Nope. Down low. Purple.
It has been years.
Yeah.
Oh, sweet succulent balls. Will Chase Brown ever be a top 36 fantasy football running back?
Yes, I see it. I can see it. I can see it in the side.
No, one ball says hell, the other one says no.
Oh, no, that's Chubb's jersey upside down. Never mind.
Things aren't looking good, Chase.
All right. So
Hope your brother doesn't hurt you.
the crystal balls have spoken.
Canadian.
He's Canadian. So is his brother.
Best thing going for him.
So is his brother. That is true.
All right. So I guess I'm the only one
Felt good to hold the balls again.
that
It's been a minute.
I mean, I don't love him, but I don't hate him as
Can
much
we do
as
a
you
crystal
guys.
ball
Jeez.
episode this summer?
Where it's only crystal balls.
Only crystal balls.
It's been a long time.
We might need to.
Yeah.
Sweet stuff.
I mean,
I have him in a campus to Canton league. As soon as I was done with him, I went to the group me and I was like, Chase Brown on the block. That's all I said.
You dealing?
Because he was a good producer for campus
He
Canton
was.
league because you're scoring on that side. But his second all-time leading rusher in Illinois history.
Good college back.
Who's it behind? Rashard Mendenhall?
I don't know. I forget.
Mendenhall's like the only
only
good
guy-
one I know from there.
No, it's not him. It's someone else. I forget.
Someone
who it is.
not as
Good
good
2
as
years for
Mendenhall.
Pittsburgh.
He did.
All right. Moving on to the next prospect here.
Doesn't get much better.
Camerun Peoples, Appalachian State running back, 6'1", 217 pounds, 9 3/4 inch hands. I don't know why I keep saying that.
I don't know either.
4.61. It's a theme now. 4.61 in the 40 at a 1.56 10-yard split, 121-inch broad jump, 37-inch vertical. Last year in 9 games, he had 101 attempts, 593 yards rushing, 5 touchdowns, 6 receptions, 43 yards, and no additional touchdowns.
Yeah, this is okay. And now the prospects we're going to talk on the second show, the Nerd Show, are unanimously better than all the prospects on this show.
The back end ones?
The back end ones.
The back end ones. So, Camerun Peoples, first of all, Appalachian State, not a lot of tape on him for to get my hands on. Looking at just like raw numbers, he definitely had a better 2020 and 2021 than he did in 22. I did read that he was banged up some.
He did have some injuries.
In 22 and some injuries. So
he's also 23 years old. I forgot to mention that.
He is 23 years
He's
old.
an old man.
A fifth-year senior.
He'll be 24 to start the season. His birthday is in September.
So I'm gonna give him. I'm gonna give him a little bit of credit to that because the first 2 years were better than last year. I read that he was banged up a lot.
When the season starts.
There we go. That's better.
He'll be 24. A career average of 6.2 yards per carry at Appalachian State. Runs strong. That's an okay jump cut. But I mean, this guy's not very elusive. His burst isn't really there. His tips are
His tips.
His tips.
are very tight.
Talk about his tips.
Just a tip.
Tips don't lie.
Didn't really catch the ball a lot. Not a lot there for him. And there's one thing nobody does that's really weird. I don't know if you guys notice this. When the ball snaps, he does this little thing where he almost stands up and jumps and then goes. It's real quick. It's real subtle.
I'd like to watch again now just to see this, but
if you watch it, I don't know why it bothered me.
I know what you're talking about.
He
But,
stands up and never goes back down.
Yeah, they hike the ball, and then before he goes, it's really quick. He's up and then goes. It's
I
He's
wonder
up and stays up.
I wonder if that's a tell at all. Like if he doesn't do it on play action, or if he doesn't, you know what I mean? Like when he's getting the ball, if he does that exclusively, it might be just something
I feel like he did it every time. Almost.
He had
It started to annoy me, honestly, a little bit.
he had the worst pad level score I've ever given to anyone.
Yeah.
I've never had a worse pad level score in the history of doing this.
Runs high.
He runs straight up and down.
And he wants to be physical. You
He
would
does.
You would think he want to get lower.
Yeah.
But
He
no,
does not.
No,
There's no
no,
bend
no.
in his game.
There were actually times that they used him more as a receiver this year than they did at running back at times. So, because for Devy leagues, he actually kind of had one of those hybrid roles where he was able to do that. So
He only
I
had
didn't
six receptions.
Yeah, I didn't see any passing.
well, the problem was they didn't throw it to him, but he flexed out.
Dude, no else did that a lot.
Hey, Cameron, go on.
Roshan Johnson
He
did
had
that
a
a
good
lot.
Was that?
Roshan Johnson did that a lot.
They did. They flexed him out a lot.
They flexed Roshan Johnson out a ton.
Yeah.
And they never threw the kid a ball. Every time I'm like, this is it. No.
Yeah.
You got good hits, too.
He did.
Do you want to know who he scored around in my nerd score?
Who?
Spencer Brown,
Never heard of him.
Reggie Corbin,
Never heard of him.
Siwo Olanula. I don't know.
These are all people from the past 4 years.
Ben
Nailed it.
LeMay,
I know. I remember the names.
Scotty Phillips.
Guess what all those guys have in common?
Yep.
Not in the league.
Undrafted.
They're trying to make the XFL rosters.
Yeah.
Yep.
All
All
this
right,
guy's
so-
not draftable.
It's the worst score that I had of all the guys that we talked about so far.
Same.
He's bad, man. Yeah, he's
I know. I texted Garrett. I was like, why the hell is he on our sheet?
But listen, I mean, it's just
He went to
important.
the combine. He was at the Senior
Yeah,
Bowl.
that's the thing.
Right,
If guys are in the
exactly.
senior board, they're at the combine. It's important to know these names as well. Just to take
sure.
out their list and let somebody else draft him.
Yeah, for sure.
it absolutely is.
Yeah, cross them off your list.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Chase Browns.
Chase Brown has got some redeemable qualities.
I think we're gonna,
I would draft a kicker in a non-kicker league.
Oh my god.
I think the next guy you can kind of tie into.
All right, so the next guy
that was a good
list,
Was that intentional?
Yeah.
Tiyon Evans, running back, Louisville, 5'9", 225 pounds. Another guy with 8.5-inch hands.
He's juicy.
4.52 in the 40, 1.61 in the 10-yard split. So that's about a tenth of a second slower than a lot of these guys in 10 yards. Didn't run
Lumbering.
any of the drill. Oh, wait, he did a 30.5-inch vertical, so nothing to write home about there. In 8 games last year, he had 83 attempts, 525 yards, 6 touchdowns, 6 receptions, 13 yards, no additional touchdowns in the passing game.
Also 24. And he only played in 8 games this year.
Why do I have him at 21?
I have him at 24.
Tiyon Evans. We'll have to get that.
I'll look into it.
We'll have to have our producer nail that one
Yeah,
down.
you start Googling.
Jamie.
Correct him.
Look it up.
I am Jamie.
All right. So with Evans, I
21.
feel like based on the
21?
conversation that we had
Yeah,
before
he's
this,
21.
I'm going to be kind of like Matt is for Chase Brown. I'm not a truther, but I feel like I like him more than everybody else here. I get it. He does not have juice. Like the juice isn't there, which is concerning. But he kind of reminds me of Caleb Huntley of the Atlanta Falcons, where in those short yardage physical situations,
Now I'm excited.
Sold.
he's in the NFL and he plays.
Sold. Give him to
Go
me.
get hit. You have 30-man rosters in your dynasty league. Go pick up Caleb Huntley off the waiver wire.
Half of the people who listen just went, who?
Which is fair.
Waiver wire.
Which is fair.
People got Antonio Brown on their roster.
But he is a very physical player. He can find the hole and he can hit it and he can hit it hard. So I do think that there is a place for that
Wait,
in the
can
NFL.
you say that again?
Hit it hard.
Finds the hole, he hits it, and he hits it hard. All right. So with a guy like,
Just tie it on. It's fine. Let's do it.
never mind. Next person go.
Are you aroused?
He was my second lowest grade.
Yeah. I mean, I thought he had. I'll give you a pro.
Go ahead.
I thought for his size, I thought he had pretty good lateral movement for
He
his
has
size.
decent
He
feet.
was the number 1 JUCO running back coming into 2021. He
I
went
thought-
to Tennessee and then he transferred.
He did transfer from Tennessee. I thought he did have some quick feet.
Yeah.
I honestly did. For a back that's
Poor man's AJ Dillon.
short and compact, for all the fun that we were having, he does have a few redeemable qualities. He just does not have any burst. He does not have any long
He's a
speed
running back,
or-
fullback hybrid.
Yes, he is.
How big are his hands?
Small, 8.5.
He's a
Yeah,
dime a dozen.
three fumbles on 83 carries.
XFL.
No patience, no third down value, just not draftable.
I don't think he's going to get drafted in the NFL.
I don't think so either.
So
I think he will.
You
I think
do?
he'll be.
Not great.
I'll say this. I think he will be on a roster. I'll say that. I don't know. I don't know if he'll be an undrafted free agent, but I think he'll get.
He'll
drafted.
get
Sounds
into
like a bet.
He'll get
And
into
Justin
a.
Jefferson's jump balls are questionable.
He'll get into.
They were never questionable. They were always above average, and it was contested catch. But regardless,
It was wrong.
Oh man.
And that's
I like him more than I like Cameron.
Cameron Peoples and
Peoples.
Chase Brown.
Chase Brown's better than him.
I would take Chase Brown over him, and that's telling you something.
Wow.
He's more powerful than Chase Brown.
Definitely.
I would trust him at the 5-yard line.
Chase
I
Brown at
would
least
also.
gives you some PPR.
But
possibility.
this guy at least will get you in the end zone.
Like I was literally questioning. I was like, with Chase Brown, like if he's at the 5-yard line versus a high school team, do you think he can get through?
Come on, man.
I think one of it every 5 tries.
Depends what number 1 ranked high school team in the state.
No.
Yeah.
Nope. I don't think so either. Like St. Ignatius, St. Ed's, probably not.
Stop it.
Dude, him trying to pass protect's like a paper bag in the wind. That's it for the show.
That's it.
Gonna jump on the Nerd Herd show. Remember, if you want to get in the Nerd Herd, I gotta go to UnderdogFantasy.com, deposit $10, use the promo code NERDS. You're gonna get the Nerd Herd show.
Link in the show notes.
Links in the show notes and all the Dynasty GM stuff as well. I use the Dynasty GM this time of year all the time. So
Almost daily.
yeah, check
Or
it out.
Get a shirt.
Let's jump into the Nerd Herd show because we're gonna leave, if you're curious, who we're gonna talk about in the next show. We're gonna be talking about Jahmyr Gibbs. We're gonna be talking about Roshan Johnson, Kendre Miller, Israel Abanikanda,
Kanda.
Abanikanda.
Shut your mouth.
Come on, man.
Deuce Vaughn,
Practiced.
also known as Gluteus Minimus, Evan Hall, and that's it.
Minimus is minimus.
Minimus is
Oh
minimus.
yeah, he looks when he's standing up straight. He's at eye level. Gluteus Minimus is Gluteus Maximus.
Boom.
Thank you.
That's easy for you to say. Adios.